Basically, to make sure that I add my effort into the effort of my colleagues in the movement who are pushing for a better and more hopeful South Sudan. The status quo, or the state of affairs currently in the country, it's shameful to say the least. The country has totally lost direction. There's no vision and goals that are set for the leadership to take the country into. As being person from Warab State, from Barak Azal region, where people perceive the leadership is from and where the president is from, I have walked there in many of those states. And the facts of the matter is that that region is the region that is suffering the most. The state of Warab is the state that is suffering the most. As we speak now, people are facing a hunger crisis in Warab State. As we speak now, there are conflict, inter-communal conflict within Lake State, where every day we are losing 50, 60, 70 people. These are Dinkas of themselves in their own region of Barkazal in the same state. The leadership is unable to bring all these issues to rest. The other issue that made me join the movement is the ever-increasing, ever-decreasing political space for the people within the country and within the region. Dictatorship seems to be taking hold in the country, and those activists that are having different views are being squeezed into a smaller space, and that makes it difficult. There's one person who said that those who make peaceful revolution impossible only make violent revolution inevitable. So this is basically what happened. Of course, when I rebelled, the members of the forum sat down and rightfully used the constitution to dismiss me from my position, which is their right to do that. Since I've rebelled against the system, there was no way I can continue to lead the youth back in South Sudan. I'm also a son of Warab State, from Barak Azal region, a state where the President Salva Kiir Mayardit is from. And I decided to join the movement, basically to bust the idea that this war is war between two ethnic groups, the Nuer and the Dinkas. We want to reject that narrative, and the true narrative of the matter is that this is a leadership crisis in the country. This is a power struggle. This is a struggle of ideology and ideas on how to take forward the country. This is a fight between democracy and freedom. This is the fight between equality of all the ethnic groups in the place and supremacy of one certain group over the rest. So I decided to join the movement that is perceived to be from the Nuer ethnic group, while I'm from Dinka ethnic group, to say that this movement from now on has transformed itself into a national movement that represents the aspiration of the people of South Sudan. And that both sides of this conflict, there are people from these two ethnic groups and the rest of the ethnic groups in South Sudan. There are Nuer and Dinkas in the government of Salva, and there are Nuer and Dinkas in the movement led by Dr. Machar. So what we are trying to say is that the lack of leadership in the country is not only affecting the other ethnic groups. The first victims of leadership paralysis in the country are the Dinkas themselves. You can see in Warab the socio-economic indicators in Warab are very, very poor. Whether you are talking about child mortality, maternal mortality, whether you are speaking about the hunger, the food security in the state, all these issues are worse in Warab State more than in other state. When you talk about insecurity, it is worse in Barak Azal area. You can see now Lake State for almost how many years now have been fighting with each other without anything going wrong. This is an indication of failure of leadership. You can see in Warab as well, there are conflict in Warab. There is leadership issues in Warab. There is no development going on there. People are starving. So we, the Dinkas, should not put our head into the sun and say that because our son is the leader, everything is okay. Everything is not okay. If you want your son to lead, it's better that he leads in a good way in a good manner and unite the people of South Sudan so that all of us can benefit from this country. We fought for this nation. We got rid of people that were dominating us, that were oppressing us, were indoctrinating us, not only for another ethnic group like Dinka to come and replace what the Arab used to do to the rest of people. That's not what our forefathers and fathers died for. They died so that we have equality, that no human being should be better than the other, and no tribe should be better than the other, that all of us should be equal and share stakeholders, so that we use our diversity as a tool to unite ourselves and strengthen and build a prosperous nation, rather than using ethnicity to kill ourselves. So I have joined this movement because I know Dr. Riek Machar is visionary and is committed to national agenda, and that is he wants to fix the ills of the country and move the nation forward. There are people who say that President Salva is an elected president, and that is right. In 2010 he was elected overwhelmingly by the people of South Sudan. But that is not the end of democracy. Democracy is when you are given the mandate, that you need to protect that mandate and follow the constitution. The events of 2013 did shake the foundation of his legitimacy that was given to him in 2010. The targeting of the Nuer civilians, the transformation of what was a political discourse within the party into a military confrontation that has now engulfed the country. These are things that have dented his credentials as an elected president. The final straw for me personally was when he decided that 2015 there was not going to be any elections. Our mandate and the contract of the people of South Sudan with President Salva was for 5 years, from 2010 to 2015. After that, the people of South Sudan deserve the right to go back to the polls and decide their future leader. But we are denied that, and a rubber stamp assembly decided to amend the constitution to give themselves 3 more years, which we thought that was not what we said from beginning in 2010. And the excuse of the fact that there is war in the country, that we cannot conduct elections, to me it flies over the truth, because there are many other countries that conduct elections with a bit of insecurity in the country. If the government is giving the security briefing every week in the cabinet meetings, where they are saying that they control almost 95% of the country, and only 5% of the country is where the rebels are, then that statistics should be used to allow the country to go into elections so that they can choose their leaders. So as far as I'm concerned, the elected president narrative has ended. The legitimate president narrative has ended. And the only way the people of South Sudan can move forward is to sign a comprehensive peace that is just and lasting and sustainable, so that we can move back into our country and try to turn back what is now a civil war, into a political discourse, so that we can continue to solve our problems within the country in South Sudan. Anything short than that is going to disintegrate the country into pieces. Now they are saying that there is a movement army and the government army, but in our view, it is just accumulation of militias. The army that is being commanded currently by General Paul Malong is basically a Dinka Barkazal militia. Then there is a Shuluk militia. Then there is a Bari militia. Then there is a Zande militia, the Arab boys. Then there is a Murle militia by Yao Yao. So the country is made up of militias, different armed groups that are not national in nature. Only if we bring all these stakeholders together can we be able to start afresh and build a national army, build national institution from afresh, based on concrete foundations of national international standards, so that we avoid the path that we have taken. The path we have taken can end us in examples of countries like Somalia if we continue in the same path. Government realizing that they have lost the interest of the people, that the mandate they were given in 2010 was misused, and that the promises they made in 2010 were never fulfilled, and the people of South Sudan were going to turn to alternatives. The government decided to use the divide and rule method to cling on to power. And that was to incite the Dinka majority that this leadership belonged to you as Dinka, and other ethnic group wants to snatch it from your hands. Therefore, you must rally behind the government to make sure that we protect our leadership as Dinka. That was the only card left to them, because the card of service delivery was zero. The card of economic management was zero. The card of security sector management, the reforms, the diplomatic pushes around the world. We were isolated ever and ever. Our economy was collapsing. Food security was becoming an issue. Insecurity within the different ethnic group. The government was losing control of the country. So the only way they can stick to power and increase their mandate is to incite conflict based on ethnic. And they have succeeded in doing that. All the Dinkas now, even those who believe 100% that Comrade Salva and the administration are not doing so well for the people of South Sudan, are now standing with Comrade Salva and the government, because they believe this is a Dinka government and we must stand behind it. To me, this is uncalled for, and Dinka as a tribe is a big tribe that has sacrificed so much to bring the country where we are today. Like any other ethnic group, we should not be reduced to this level of it, because if we want to have the leadership of the country, we can have it in the right way. We can put forward a son and a group of people that can do the right thing by the people of South Sudan, and they can be voted in. So this is why they managed to divide the people. That led to the rampant killing of the Nuer ethnic group, and the Nuer ethnic group decided to in their self-defense, to run into the bush and form a movement. So the future of the country and the unity of the country is in the hands of the leadership in Juba, and those of the Dinka tribes that have been mobilized by the government to defend it and to increase its mandate. It's up to them whether they want this country to be in groups, each nation on its own, each tribe on its own, or we will forge a united South Sudan that is prosperous, that is free, with equal citizenship. This is up to them. This is up to them, and I'm appealing to them that their sons are better used in development war that is coming next. Their sons should be collected to go to schools to study, so that their energy and their brain is used. Now in Barat Kazal, producing a generation of angry youth who have been incited against other ethnic groups. We are building a country where when they grow up, they will think that their enemy is, for example, Nuer, when contrary is the truth. When the closest friend of Dinka, going way back thousands of years, has been Nuer. In fact, we trace ourselves to one man in our history. We are brothers and sisters. The intermarriages between the Dinka and the Nuer is amazing. Somebody did a research about it and said that over 40% of Dinkas have Nuer blood in them, and over 40% of Nuer has the Dinka blood in them. So why are we allowing the communities that are so close to each other be ripped apart because of a power struggle, when we have the ballot boxes that can be used to determine who leads? And we South Sudanese, if we choose the wrong leader, we all suffer. All of us, the 64 tribes. If we choose a good leadership, we all benefit, all of us. It's not about this ethnicity. So I'm appealing to my community in Warab, in Awil, in Lake State, in Wau, Western Barkazal State, that the best way to go forward is to let the government know that peaceful settlement is the best way to go, and reconciliation must start immediately, so that this seed of hatred that have been planted can be squashed, can be nipped in the bud when it is still very small, so that it doesn't spread to the extent where we are unable to reconcile later on, and we have a country that disintegrates. Just like countries can be born, like we were born in 2011, countries can also die. So this country can also go out of the map. It was not in the map before 2011. And through sacrifices, 50 years of bloodshed, we put it in the international map. But through our divisions and our hatred that we are planting now, we can destroy it again. You should not be surprised in few years that there is no country called South Sudan. the neighboring countries can take chunk of it, Sudan can take part of it, Uganda take part of it, Kenya and Ethiopia and so forth, and we end up with no country. So the issues of reconciliation has to be taken very seriously. And if people divide themselves, they should not divide themselves on ethnic group. They should divide themselves based on ideology and what they believe in is the right leadership. And that's why I have left my community and I have joined a movement that is led by somebody from another ethnic group, because I believe in what he's saying. I believe in his ideas. I believe in where he wants to take the country. I believe in where Dr. Machar wants South Sudan to be. And I have believed before in how he has contributed to make sure South Sudan is where it is today. So this is what I encourage the youth of South Sudan. Don't stick with the government because the government is led by somebody from your tribe. No. You look into what the government is doing exactly for you as the people of South Sudan. Is he uniting you? Is he delivering services to you? Is he doing the right thing by you and by the nation, by the constitution? Or is he doing the opposite? And this is how the youth of South Sudan should be able to approach politics of the country. And so my community of Warab, who feels that I may have betrayed them, this is not an ethnic conflict. This narrative is wrong. It may have started in the first few months, but all of us should work to make sure that this thing is taken back to the path of political discourse instead of ethnic conflict. Government, the supporters of the government have weighed it down very heavily on Dr. Machar, the chairman of the movement, for the incident of 1991. The incident of 1991, firstly, was just being used as a way to mobilize our community, the Dinka, behind Comrade Selfa and the government for the failures they have done over the last 5 years or 10 years in power. There was no point for 1991 to be brought up again and again, and it was brought up in a way that is partial. They don't reveal the whole story. Is that in 1991, while ethnic Dinkas were killed, more ethnic Nuer were killed in revenge attacks. And so there were the killing of the Dinkas board, but also the SPLA went into the areas of Law and killed the Nuer in big numbers. So they are not talking about it in a fair way, in a way that can unite the people. They were using it as a tool to try and demonize Dr. Machar and try and reduce his political credit. But these are false. Dr. Machar has got over that. The people of South Sudan have got over 1991. He has apologized for his part of it. It is up to those that committed atrocities of 1991 on law to come forward and apologize for their action. So I don't think 1991 is brought up in a good way to reconcile the people of South Sudan. It is brought up to incite ethnic hatred, to mobilize our community, the Dinka, against Dr. Machar, which is not the right way to go. The South Sudan need all the 64 ethnic groups. If we the Dinka think that we can rule this country without the Nuer and the rest of 63 ethnic groups, we are liars, and we will be proven wrong by history. Likewise, if the Nuer believe that they can rule the country without the Dinka and the rest, still the history will prove them wrong. The only way is that we are stuck with each other. There are 64 tribes. We are in one geographical place. We have been together in history. We fought together bitterly for our independence, and our future is intertwined. So we must coexist, and we must respect ourselves. We must be equal citizens. Anybody from any tribe must be allowed to aspire for any position in the country, regardless of which ethnic group they come from. This is the South Sudan we believe in, and this is the South Sudan we've been advocating for. As an activist in South Sudan for the last 10 years, I have been advocating and organizing people from the grassroots for this aspiration and this visionary direction for the country. The country has been looted, under the leadership of Comrade Selfa. And of course, you cannot blame everybody. You always have to blame the leadership of the country. The resources of the country are put under one person, and that is the President of the Republic, to make sure that they are utilized for the better of the country. If anything goes wrong with them, the blame goes to the driver of the vehicle, and that is Comrade Selfa. And what we have realized over the last 10 years of his leadership is that he fights corruption in a partial manner, and that the people he targets are people that he believes are a political threat to him, rather than those who have actually committed corruption. Because you have seen how before the crisis he targeted those people like the former cabinet minister Deng Alor and the former minister of finance Kosti Manibe were targeted for engaging in corrupt deals. The question that begs to be asked is that when did Comrade Deng Alor started the issue of corruption? He has been a minister from 2005. Did he start corruption in 2013? 8 years later, after he decided very clearly that they are going to challenge Comrade Salfa for chairmanship? Kosti Manibe, when did he start with corruption? Paganamo, when did he start to misuse the money of SPLM? Did he start using the money for SPLM in 2005? Or did he start using the money in 2013 when he said that he's going to contest against Comrade Salfa? So Comrade Salfa is not serious about fighting corruption. In fact, he's encouraging corruption in the country. The only people he's willing to fight are the people that are a threat to him politically, not the people who are looting the country. So this idea that the so-called G10 or the members of the movement in the SPLM-IO are people that looted the country and then ran away is not the truth of the matter. We know that those who loot the country are still surrounding Comrade Salfa as we speak today, and that he's not serious about corruption. These are the things that we want to correct. We want to make sure that whether you are a brother of Comrade Salfa or an enemy of Comrade Salfa, if you commit corruption, if you don't differentiate between public money and your private money, you must pay through the constitution, through the law. The law must deal with you. But what we have now under the current leadership over the last 10 years is that if you sing very good song to Comrade Salfa, it doesn't matter how much you loot, you are okay in the country. As soon as you say that things are not going in the right direction and that you want to change, then you are the corrupt one. Shifter. For me, for example, I was a youth leader in the country, and I was standing with him before the end of his term, for 5 years term. I was good. And as soon as I said that things are not going right and we need a change, my life became under threat in Juba. When I joined the movement, I am now the bad person that has betrayed the Dinka and I've left this community and so forth. So the issue of corruption is deep-rooted in this administration, and it has to be eradicated. And the people of South Sudan, especially the youth, need to know that what is being looted is their future. What is being mortgaged out is their future. They need to rise up above, they need to transcend their ethnic mindset and rise up and see themselves as South Sudanese who want to take charge of their country and their future. So currently in the country, the Juba regime is using our God-given resources, the oil, that should have been used to develop the country, that should have been used to improve services to the people, the healthcare, to reduce the maternal mortality and child mortality rates in the country, to increase our literacy rates in the country, to develop our infrastructure for the future of the country. Now they are being used to arm themselves as if they are fighting other people, but they are using those guns to kill their own voters. So the government is arming itself, using the money that should have been used to feed the people and to develop the people, to kill the people that brought it in power. How else can you lose legitimacy than that? And so they are also using these resources, these small resources that we should use to better our lives, to buy mercenaries, like the inclusion of UPDF from Uganda into the conflict. These are mercenaries that are very expensive. This money could have been used to improve the infrastructure of the SPLA, to improve the salaries of the SPLA, to help the families of the wounded, the families of martyrs who have fallen in the war, both the war of liberation and the current war. Their families now are suffering, while the Ugandan forces are being paid a ridiculous amount of money. Uganda as a state is being paid a lot of money to make sure these mercenaries protect this government from its own voters. This is moral bankruptcy in its highest order. And so this situation needs to be reversed. The sovereignty that the government is supposed to be protecting, it is the government that is supposed to protect our territorial integrity that is destroying our sovereignty now by bringing in other forces, by allowing our borders to be infiltrated, by allowing even our economic policies to be hijacked by the region. So we are not an independent country. We are independent by name, but in reality, the current regime has mortgaged our sovereignty. And when we voted them in 2010, we voted them in for them to protect us, develop us, and to protect our sovereignty as a nation. They have totally failed in that. So there was no way somebody like me can continue to support such a regime, but to call for its removal. Of course, I would have preferred to remove it democratically, but 2015 has proven that the regime was not ready for a democratic exercise. The regime was not ready to give political space for those who are saying no. And all of us know that in South Sudan, those who speak against the government, we know what happens to them. So as a young man, I was left with no option but to join the armed revolution to bring about the change in the country. And so the government has turned against everything we fought for in our liberation. 21 years of war and beyond that in Nyanyawan. We fought for concrete objectives. The government, after achieving the independence, has turned on those objectives. For example, the freedom of speech, expression, and association. It has reached a point now where the journalists, people are cracking down on journalists. They are cracking down on free speech. They are cracking down on free association. People are being monitored. We have turned into a police state. This was one of the cornerstones of things we fought for against the Khartoum regime, and we got our independence. Now the government is the one infiltrating the same things that we fought against. Number two, we fought for equality. In Sudan, they used to say that certain people from certain ethnic group or certain religious background cannot rule the country. We said no, that human beings are equal. Nobody is better than the other, and no ethnic group is better than any other ethnic groups. We are equal. Now, the government believes that there are certain ethnic groups that are not fit to rule the country. This is against what we fought for. Okay, we fought for democratic freedom. We didn't want these issues of taking power by force or clinging on to power by force and using security and turn the country into a police state. These are the issues we said we didn't want. But now the Juba government, the SPLM that fought and got the independence, has been hijacked by people that have the same ideas that we fought against. And now they are implementing the same ideas on the people of South Sudan. The question is, how do we expect us to accept this? If the people of South Sudan were brave enough to fight off the Arabs, who were by then more advanced education-wise, and their system was more entrenched, and we managed to get rid of them from our neck, the people of South Sudan are strong enough still to get whoever that is stuck on their neck out. So people should not have illusions that we can have a dictator in South Sudan. There is no space for South Sudanese to be dictated. There is no space for South Sudanese to be discriminated. And so this movement is going to grow, is going to grow, is going to get bigger, is going to get more national, is going to include more youth, are joining in big numbers as we speak. And we will drive the message home very soon, that the change is going to come one way or the other. And that is for the better of the people of South Sudan. And so the government has turned against the Troika. They don't want them in the peace talks. They are restricting their movement within the country. The people that were responsible for helping us to attain our independence, they are still the one, as we speak, feeding our refugees in the camps, whether it is in the UNIMIS camps or in the camps across the country, where the government has turned and killed its own voters, displaced them, sent them to the camps. The Troika countries are the one coming in feeding these people, okay? While the government is using the money from the oil to arm itself to kill the same people. And at the same time, Troika is still the enemy of the country. The message from the movement is that Troika is not an enemy of South Sudan. It is an enemy of the regime of Comrade Salva. But we, the people of South Sudan, appreciate the Troika, the USA, the European Union, and all the friends in the world, in Africa, and within the region that have worked so hard to make sure that we are independent, and they're still working hard now to make sure that peace is restored in the country, that they are accommodating our people. Ethiopia, for example, thousands of people are being accommodated in Ethiopia, thousands are being accommodated in Uganda, thousands are being accommodated in Kenya, and in the region. So the region is working very hard to make sure that we restore the stability in the country so we can move forward. They are all our friends. So the people of South Sudan appreciate their efforts, and we stand with them. And we hope that they continue and they don't give up on us until we can find our footing. The government has lost its direction and vision, and that's why it's losing its friends and turning friends into enemies. So I want to tell the people of South Sudan that there is hope, that all this madness and this violence will be brought to an end. People should not despair that this violence will not end and will never end. Anything that has a beginning has an end. And this started as a misunderstanding, but we have the strength within us, the people of South Sudan, to unite again and forge a common understanding and move forward to build a prosperous nation. Why I say that is that we have done that before. We have been divided before, and we have united ourselves under different conditions. First, by fighting off the colonialists before 1956, and also to fight for our freedom from our brothers in the north. This only came because we are united. So I still believe that even with all this damage to the fabric, social fabric of the country, we can still come together and this war can be ended, and we can forge a peaceful and united democratic South Sudan. I decided to fight this government because there was no any other possible way of dealing with the government. The government has closed down the political space in the country for those that want to push for change in a peaceful manner. So the country has lost direction, the country has lost vision, the country has become too corrupt, the country has become too divided, the government has lost the mandate, the legitimacy. The government went against its mandate of protecting the people to killing the people. The government has gone against its mandate of protecting our territorial integrity to compromising it. The government has gone against its mandate of having good diplomatic relations with the countries that are our friends and have helped us to turning them into #1 enemies. So the government has done too many mistakes for me to continue to support the government without saying anything. As much as I would have preferred to speak with my mouth and use peaceful means within Juba, it was clear to anybody that is in Juba that there was no space for such that. It was either you were with the rebels or you are fully with them. And I decided that I could not be with them and that I had to be with the movement. It's obvious now there was no coup on 15th of December 2013. Of course, the government came out and pushed that narrative, but the false and the lies are always quick to go out, but eventually the truth follows and catch up with the lies. The truth of the matter is that there was no coup in Juba. It was just a small incident within the Republican Guard that was misused by the militia that went on door to door, cleansing the Nuer ethnic groups that incited the Nuer to fight the government in massive numbers. The person I put most blame for the current suffering, of course, is a combination of many things, but the blame has to squarely fall in the foot of the President of the Republic, Comrade Salva. It was under his watch that a country was divided. It was under his watch that an ethnic cleansing of the Nuer was conducted in the city where he was. It was under his watch that what was an SPLM internal discourse was sprayed to the military and the soldiers were involved. So the hatred that has been sown under his leadership. Of course, history cannot forgive him about that, and that will be part of his legacy as the president that oversaw the disintegration of the country. So I put the blame in him, as much as I put the hopes that this thing can be turned around under his leadership. And if he really concentrates and listens to his internal instinct, I believe that Comrade Salva can turn this thing around. If he doesn't listen to the negative voices that surround him, people who don't believe that they have an interest in a free and democratic South Sudan, people that want to benefit from the war, who want to profiteer from the war economy. If he stopped listening to such people and listen to his own instinct, as somebody who has fought for the freedom of people of South Sudan for two wars. In Anyanya 1 he fought, in SPLA he was one of the leaders, the founding members. So I still have faith that if he really listens to himself and he talks to himself, he can bring peace to this country. But unfortunately he's surrounded and he's been hijacked by opportunists that want to make sure that this line that is being pushed continues until we don't have a nation anymore. So it is my appeal to him to get back to himself, the Comrade Salva of before 2005, who was ready to sacrifice his life so that his people are free. Cannot be the same Comrade Salva in 2013 who can do anything and everything to make sure that citizens die. And so all these contradictions within the SPLM are brought about by the decision of Comrade Salva to get rid of the original members of SPLM, sidelining them together from the decision-making process, and brought in opportunists that were fighting against us during the Liberation War, that were clearly opportunists who decided not to go to war and decided to live with their families and enjoy the benefits of being in cities like Khartoum and Wau and Malakal. These are clear non-opportunists who will sing any song to the leader to make sure they get their food. These are the people now that have now been brought in and are the one controlling the SPLM. Of course, an SPLM like that cannot do what it used to do in the bush, because those who are in the bush are either now outside the country fighting the government, or they are within the Juba and they have been sidelined and they are sitting in their houses. Those who believe that they cannot pick up arms are sitting in their houses and they are watching Comrade Salva go. So somebody like me, who grew up as a young man in the SPLM, has a child in the SPLM, grew up, knew nothing than SPLM, I cannot recognize the SPLM of today completely. I just see Comrade Salva and maybe Comrade Waniga, and from there I don't recognize anybody from the SPLM. And that's why we have lost direction and vision, because it was not their direction, it was not their vision. It is the guy with a vision that follows his own vision. But you cannot bring in an opportunist and counter-revolutionaries and expect them to continue with your vision. Even the youth, the Comrade Salva has got rid of his youth, the Red Army, that he trained himself. He indoctrinated them, and he spoke to them, and he told us that you are the future of this country. When we came inside, he got rid of his own children, and then he allowed the youth that don't know him very well to be the one working for him currently. Of course, they are going to push him in the wrong direction, and his legacy is going to be destroyed. That is our fear. And for us who have seen Comrade Salva in the trenches during the war, feel heartache seeing that his legacy is going to be spoiled. And that's why people like us tried their best to stay in the government as long as possible, to make sure that we change things from inside, to make sure that his legacy of 40 years is not thrown away by one action. But it looked like Comrade Salva was very determined to bring in the newcomers and push away the original members of SPLM. So under Comrade Salva, the SPLM has been hijacked. The political leaders of the SPLM that came together with him in the bush were sidelined at the expense of those who are the yes men, the new yes men, who have learned the art of how to suck up to a leader. Of course, you sidelined the leaders because they were vocal enough to tell him that we are moving away from direction, Comrade Salva, let's go in the right direction. They were put aside. The same thing also happened in the armed forces. The original SPLA soldiers are now suffering on the street. Some of them are alcoholic, some of them are committing suicide, they cannot take care of their children. The wounded have been left on the streets, the veterans have been forgotten completely. The SPLA currently has been taken over by militias that were recruited after 2005. These are the soldiers now called the SPLA soldiers. The name has been left the SPLA, but the original SPLA who did the work and free the people have been left on the streets. The SPLM has remained SPLM, but in reality, it has become a house of opportunists, because they are expert in making Salva feel good and telling him what he wants to hear. But for us in the bush, it is not about telling him what he wants to hear, it's about telling him what is the right thing and how it can be built. Because if we wanted to destroy him, if we, the SPLM, original SPLM, wanted to destroy Comrade Salva, we would have destroyed him from 1983. But we nurtured him from 1983. As a young captain who joined the movement, he was nurtured by the movement leaders, his colleagues, until he became a general, until he became a president. So when did we turn around and we wanted to destroy him? It is the fact that we want to tell him the right way to go. So we are not going to flatter anybody. We will tell him the truth, that yes, you have done well in the past, but from this point, you don't have what it takes to take us into the future. Let's allow other colleagues that are more prepared to take us into the future to take over the leadership of the country. So what needs to be done to end this war is for the leaders to rise up and make the necessary compromises that are required to bring about peace. The idea of military solution should be put as far away from our minds as possible, because the Juba regime believes in a military solution. The question that I ask to that is, if you cannot defeat David Yawyao, who is a theology student from one of the smallest ethnic groups, the Murle, if you could not defeat him for years, since 2010, until you sign a peace agreement with him in Addis, how do you expect to defeat Dr. Riek Machar, a decorated general, a PhD holder, from the second largest ethnic group that are fighting with so much anger because of the massacre that was committed against them in 2013? How do you expect to defeat him if you cannot defeat Yawyao? So the issue of the military solution should be taken away. It is an illusion that the movement can be crushed militarily. It is an illusion. And the more you have this illusion, the more you continue the suffering of the people of South Sudan. The best way is to have a just and sustainable peace. Make the necessary compromises, the necessary reforms that are required to allow the country to go into a free and fair polls, free and fair ballot boxes. It is up to the government to make the compromises necessary to end the bullets and open the ballot boxes. The movement has been ready from day one for peace. And the demands that are put forward are legitimate demands. Most of these demands have been accepted by mediation. So it is up to the government to realize that peace is the only way to stop the country from collapsing. The economy is at the verge of collapse. People are facing starvation. Our people are suffering in the camps. Our soldiers, the young soldiers from both sides, whether it is the government and the movement, are young people that could otherwise be used to build a nation instead of using them to destroy a nation. These are young people that can be oriented to be united in mind rather than being oriented to hate each other. So the best way is to negotiate faithfully and make the brave and painful compromises needed of leaders to bring about a peace. So this is my message to both leaders and the people of South Sudan, to remain hopeful and encourage the leaders on both sides. We in the movement will encourage our leaders in the movement to make the necessary compromises. The same thing should be with the people of South Sudan under the government control areas. They should be agitating for peace instead of agitating for war, so that we can end the suffering of our people as soon as possible and stop our country from collapse and disintegration. So it is the leaders to make the compromise. But at the same time, we must know that it is the people of South Sudan themselves that can bring about a sustainable peace. It is not the Troika, not the IGAD. It is not the region, Africa, or anybody in the international community that will bring a sustainable peace. It is you that needs to look into yourself as the people of South Sudan and ask yourself, do you want to live as a united people, as one people? Or do you want to live as a groups of tribes, each one of their own? Do you want to build a sustainable country called South Sudan, a prosperous country that sees its citizens as equal regardless of their ethnicity? If you don't answer those questions, nobody will bring you peace. The rest can only facilitate. They have their own interests and they have their own issues that they address to their own voters. It is we, the people of South Sudan. It is us, the voters of these leaders. Together, we can work to bring about peace. Even if the peace is imposed on you and you don't have reconciliation in your heart and you are not willing to live and coexist with your brothers from other ethnic groups, that peace will not be sustainable. It will just be delaying the war. It will just be buying time so that we can arm ourselves more and engage in bigger and bigger atrocities. The reconciliation must start with us, and the peace process must start with us. We must size this peace process so that we can act as a sovereign country. The leaders that are currently fighting were once brothers, and they ate together. They were in trenches together. They were bombarded together. They went to battles together. They ate from the same plate. There is nothing that can stop us from going back. The Nuer and the Dinkas have been brothers and sisters for far too long. They are too intertwined more than any other ethnic groups in South Sudan. There is nothing that can stop them from working together again. So let's be hopeful that this tragic situation in our country can be ended and be ended soon. And that responsibility is on us as South Sudanese, not anybody else. I've joined the leadership of Dr. Riek Machar I don't see him as a Nuer leader or a leader from any ethnic group, but I see him as a national leader that have had a clear vision for the independence of our country. And he's now developing new ideas about how to take this independent country into a prosperous nation. And these are the reasons I've decided to be under his leadership and under his guidance as we proceed to unite our people and to build a prosperous country.